But were you ever aware, Mr. Vice President, that interest in the Bidens, that interest in investigating the Bidens was at least in part of the reason for aid to Ukraine being held up?
I never discussed the issue of the Bidens with President Zelensky, and
were you ever aware of within the administration?
What I can tell you is that all of our discussions internally, I mean, the president and our team, in our context, in my office with Ukraine, were entirely focused on the broader issues of the lack of European support.
But you were aware
corruption.
of the interest in the Bidens being investigated,
and
that being tied to aid to Ukraine being held up.
Well, that's your question. Let me be very clear. The issue of aid and our efforts with regard to Ukraine were, from my experience, in no way connected to the very legitimate concern the American people have about corruption that took place, about things that happened in the 2016 election in Ukraine, or about the...
I'll tell you what. Nothing says I'm telling the truth quite like refusing to answer a direct question after being asked over and over again. I've gotten stuck watching a sex scene in a movie next to my parents and been less uncomfortable than Mike Pence looks trying to evade any questions about his knowledge of the Ukraine scandal. Now, what is obvious when someone absolutely refuses to answer the simple question, were you aware of requests for Ukraine to investigate Joe Biden, is that when you can't say no, it's probably a yes. Because look, I'm no expert at psychology, but if you have the chance to completely exonerate yourself, to distance yourself from a scandal that's likely to bring down the President of the United States and everyone caught in his net, you probably take it if you can. But if you can't, then you do what Mike Pence does and stammer out a non-answer that raises more questions than if he just said nothing at all. Because as we see on a near daily basis, no one has the ability to incriminate Trump administration officials more than those very Trump administration officials themselves. But while Pence won't answer the question, he does concede that his discussions with Ukraine have been, quote, focused on the broader issue of lack of European support and, wait for it, corruption. Now, where have we heard corruption being used as a keyword for conspiring with a foreign power to meddle in the election before?
I don't understand how you can ask that question while at the same time admonishing the president for wanting to get to the bottom of perhaps one of the biggest corruption scandals concerning Ukraine in the last few years.
The president's going to make sure that there is no corruption there.
Everything to me is about corruption. I don't care about Biden's campaign, but I do care about corruption. And yesterday somebody asked me a question and I gave an answer, but always in the form of corruption. What I want to do, and I think I have an obligation to do it, probably a duty to do it, corruption. We are looking for corruption. When you look at what Biden and his son did, and when you look at other people, what they've done, and I believe there was tremendous corruption with Biden, but I think there was beyond corruption, having to do with the 2016 campaign. We are looking at corruption. We're not looking at politics. We're looking at corruption.
That's right. To be honest, you would think that after seeing how poorly the whole rooting out corruption excuse worked out for his boss, that Pence would be smarter than to adopt this failed strategy. Trump is literally in the midst of being impeached because the only tire justification he had was to pretend that he was some warrior against corruption. Only, you don't get to claim you're fighting corruption when your methods to supposedly root it out are corrupt. Trump conspired with a foreign power to interfere in our election. He sought dirt on a political opponent from a foreign entity. He tried to cover it up by hiding the electronic transcript. That's all illegal. Trump isn't pursuing corruption, he's embodying it. And I get that the GOP traffics in projection, but this whole corruption thing is just plain insulting given what we already know. I mean, honestly, imagine thinking that Americans as a whole are so dumb that even after the details of Trump's crime come out, after the polls showing that the vast majority of citizens believe he acted improperly, that you still expect the country to believe you when you claim that this administration is only interested in the noble pursuit of law and order. Give me a break. The point here is that it's clear that Pence knew exactly what was going on. Just like Secretary of State Mike Pompeo claimed that he had no idea.
I want to turn to this whistleblower complaint, Mr. Secretary. The complaint involving the president and a phone call with a foreign leader to the director of National Intelligence Inspector General. That's where the complaint was launched by the whistleblower. The Wall Street Journal is reporting that President Trump pressed the president of Ukraine 8 times to work with Rudy Giuliani to investigate Joe Biden's son. What do you know about those conversations?
So you just gave me a report about a IEC whistleblower campaign, none of which I've seen.
Before admitting that not only did he know what was going on, but he was literally on the call.
As for was I on the phone call, I was on the phone call.
I know history repeats itself, but watching these administration officials say one thing before having the truth come out to bite them on a never-ending loop never ceases to amaze me. And look, there's clearly a reason why Pence wants to stay as far away from this as possible. If Trump goes down, he's next in line to assume the presidency, a possibility that's been looking more and more likely as the president's impeachment numbers continue to surge. So of course Pence's sole priority is to stay as far away from this as possible. Of course, him evading questions might buy him a few minutes of time, but just like everyone else in this administration, his hands are obviously dirty and his involvement will ultimately be exposed.